So, as I said, welcome to today's information event about doctoral networks of the Skłodowska-Curie actions. And we will have a focus how Swiss institutions can participate. My name is Isabel Spüler, and I'm very happy to have so many people involved in today's event. So the purpose of today's meeting is, first of all, I would like to introduce the main feature of the doctoral networks. And then I would like to share how Swiss partners can participate in a doctoral network. We will look at several aspects to consider for the proposal preparation. And then we also have the great fortune to have Nico Bruns as a testimonial about a successful doctoral network application from last year's call. And at the end, we also have time for questions from the Swiss participants or also from the coordinators from other countries who consider to include Swiss partners. Just to recap the agenda, so you see I will start with the introduction. We will look at the Swiss institutions' participation, the proposal, and then the testimonial. And at the end, we have time for questions, so the info event will not go longer than 3:30. First of all, Euresearch. So Euresearch, we are here to inform and guide Swiss researchers who are looking for funding opportunities within the European Framework Program. Our services are free of charge. So basically, we are the Swiss guide to European research and innovation. So our homepage is euresearch.ch, and you will see MSCA is within the excellent science sector. However, we are also a network. So Euresearch is a network with 10 regions. And your first entry point is basically the office also in your regions who know the realities of your institutions at place you are. And in Bern, this is the office where all the national context points for Horizon Europe are working. So I would like to introduce our team from the Skłodowska-Curie Action. This is Véronique Sordet, Sibylla Martinelli, and myself, Isabel Spüler. The three of us were here to support you for any questions related to Skłodowska-Curie actions. Now, let me introduce MSCA Doctoral Networks. First of all, what's all about? It's about a network of institutions to train highly skilled doctoral candidates. It's a combination of research project and training program. It's promoting international, intersectoral, and multidisciplinary collaboration. So please keep in mind, this is not an ordinary proposal to support your research project, but it's a lot about training a new generation of researchers. So the aims are to train the next generation of researchers, to increase their career prospects, to enhance collaborations among partners across countries. It's about cooperation and transfer of knowledge. And here are the main features that you should know about doctoral networks. So the project can go up to 4 years. The fellows, so the doctoral candidates, can be funded for a minimum of 3 months up to 36 months, so up to 3 years, not longer. All researchers must be enrolled in a PhD program, and at least 3 beneficiaries from EU member states or associate countries have to form the consortium. Partners from non-associated third countries can join and offer training to doctoral candidates. The call opening was on the 12th of May, so just opened, and the deadline is on 15th of November 2022. And basically next year in spring, you will receive the results of the evaluation. Now there are 3 types, subtypes within the networks. There's a regular one, the industrial network, and the joint doctorate. The regular one is a standard option. Here, there's a maximum of 360 person months that is funded. This means you can employ 10 PhD candidates for up to 3 years. This is the most common and the easiest network to implement. Then we have the joint doctorates. Here you get funding for 540 person months. This means, for example, 15 PhD candidates for 3 years. It's mandatory that these researchers get a joint degree. It's a joint government structure and a joint supervision for researchers. And this joint degree has to be from institutions that belong to EU member states or associated countries, so at least 2. Industrial doctorates also have a maximum of 540 person months. So you see both these subtypes have a higher funding. You need to have at least one entity from the non-academic sector because the candidates have to spend at least 50% in the non-academic sector. And here again, you need to have a joint supervision for the researcher. Training activities. This is a crucial element for the doctoral networks. So it's important that the complementarities of the participating organizations can be exploited. So it's very important that you have a consortium that makes sense, that have different aspects that can bring into the consortium and train each others in their expertise. So training is also about sharing knowledge at workshops or conferences within this network. And it's about research and transferable skills for each doctoral candidates. So you have to imagine this doctoral network is kind of a very special doctoral program for those candidates, and they can learn more than as if would be enrolled in a normal doctoral program. So thanks to this network spirit. One very important aspect is the training during secondments. So secondments should be intersectoral and international, and in the standard doctoral network, they should be not longer than 1/3 of a fellowship. So this would be maximum 8 months if a fellowship lasts 36 months. No, sorry, more than 8 months. 12. Yes, and if it's industrial doctorate or joint doctorate, it is unlimited. And this is very new in this call, that this is unlimited, and I will explain this later on. So the researchers that can be recruited within this network must be doctoral candidates. So this means, for example, for Switzerland, somebody can only become a PhD candidate when they have a master degree. Okay, so you need to have these conditions fulfilled that they can be doctoral candidates. And of course, they should not have defended their PhD yet. All of them must be enrolled in doctoral programs. They can be of any nationality, and they have to comply with the mobility rule. That is a very specific feature of all Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And I explain this mobility rule now. So the researcher that you want to recruit in your institution should not have lived and worked more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the date of recruitment. So you cannot simply employ a researcher who has just finished a master, let's say in Switzerland, because this person has probably lived more than 12 months in Switzerland. So it's very important, this spirit of mobility rule, and this is a movement of researchers across Europe. Now about the consortium, who can participate? Of course, these are organizations such as universities, research institutions, but also companies, SMEs, research infrastructures, NGOs. So this is really a big set of organizations that can participate. The mode of participation is crucial. So either you're a beneficiary or coordinator, or you're an associated partner, or you're an associated partner linked to a beneficiary. Now, about beneficiaries, including coordinator. So the beneficiaries sign the grant agreement. They must recruit at least one PhD candidate. So you see, you cannot be a beneficiary if you don't recruit PhD candidates. The beneficiaries offer training and they are involved in management. Then we have the associated partners. They contribute to the implementation of projects. They do not sign grant agreement, and they need to have a letter of commitment. And they are not allowed to recruit doctoral candidates. So you see here in the eligibility conditions, the minimum is to have 3 entities from 3 different European member states or associated countries. You need to have at least 1 beneficiary from a European member state. And you should also consider about the budget. So there should not be more than 40% of the budget going to one country or an international organization. And it's also very new. There is now the restriction of resubmission. If you have tried already to submit a project in the last call and the proposal got less than 80%, then there's a restriction to resubmit. And I would like to also introduce the financial aspect here very briefly. So you see here one part that is for the researcher. There's the living allowance that is multiplied by the country correction coefficient. There's the mobility allowance and family allowance if applicable. So the family status can also change. There's long-term leave allowances in case of sickness or paternity leave. There's special need allowances. This is a special request in addition, but you see this is basically like the salary of the researcher. And then we have the contribution per month per researchers that goes for the research training and networking costs, so €1,600 per month. This goes also indirectly for the researcher. And we also have the management indirect contribution that is going to the institution. And most often part of this management cost will be sent to the coordinator, who has, of course, the biggest task in managing a doctoral network. And with that, I would like to go already into Horizon Europe and Switzerland, because today's info event really has to focus how Swiss institutions can participate under the current circumstances. So first of all, I would like to introduce the website from the State Secretariat for Education, Research, Innovation, SERI, that informs regularly on their dedicated website. It's horizoneurope.ch, and you also find there a FAQ for researchers. So basically, they are the source for all the official information and documents. So Switzerland is a non-associated third country. So for the moment, Switzerland is not on the list of the countries that are to be associated. So we are currently considered as a non-associated third country. So we can't participate as beneficiaries. This means we can't claim costs from Europe. We can't sign the grant agreement. We can't recruit Marie Curie fellows, as I showed you before. So Swiss institutions need to participate as associated partners as long as Switzerland is considered a non-associated third country. And however, this status can change anytime. As soon as Switzerland will be on the list to be associated, we can again participate as beneficiary. So this is something that we have to keep an eye on. How is the status of Switzerland? So what counts at the end of your doctoral network is the status of Switzerland at the moment of the grant agreement. And I share this also because we often get questions about UK, and maybe this example of UK can also help to understand what it means to be associated or not associated. So what about UK partners? So first of all, I would like to encourage you to check the official information on the website of UCRI. UK is negotiation for association to Horizon Europe. And it says UK applicants are treated as if the UK is an associate country throughout the process from admissibility and eligibility to evaluation up until the signature of grant agreements. However, the grant agreements can only be signed once the association has come into force. So you can imagine this is quite complicated. They had to participate as beneficiaries. However, when there's a grant agreement preparation and UK is still not associated, they will become associated partners. So at proposal stage, they join as beneficiary, but then they might become associate partner later. So again, I would like to recall what it means to be associated partners in a doctoral network. So you can contribute to the implementation of the project. Swiss partners do not sign grant agreement. The letter of commitment is mandatory, but you cannot recruit official Marie Curie doctoral candidates. But Swiss partners can recruit doctoral candidates that are not official Marie Curie fellows, but they are financed by the Swiss government. I think this is the most important message of today's information event, is that the Swiss government finances PhD candidates of a successful DN proposal. So what does this mean? I made below the schema of, let's say, 10 PhD candidates that join a doctoral network, and at the end they get the degree. And you see here, for example, there's a consortium with several beneficiaries and the Swiss institution has employed 2 PhD candidates, and there are 8 official MSCA fellows that are paid by Europe, and the Swiss ones are paid by the Swiss State Secretariat. So it's important to know that they are not considered official fellows in the eyes of the Commission. However, the same rules apply for the candidates recruited at the Swiss institutions. So mobility rule, all of this, also how you recruit the fellows at the Swiss institutions has to follow the same rule. And what is also new this year is, so the State Secretariat recommends strongly that the Swiss PhD students are part of the entire European budget and not on top of. In the last year, it was recommended, or it was not recommended, but it could be basically on top of. But now they say, in view that there is a possible association until the grant agreement, they strongly recommend that the Swiss candidates are part of the entire budget. Because if you imagine Switzerland gets the association until the grant preparation, the Swiss government has no more the legal basis to finance them, and they have to be financed by Europe. So basically, if you count them on top of, it's a risk that at the end, Swiss government cannot pay in case of an association. So this is the current recommendation. Here, I wanted to share the website about what it means when your proposal has been successful. So let's say next year in spring, you get the positive answer that the proposal has been successful. Then you can visit this website from the State Secretariat, and you can also go there already now and check this guide for Swiss participants in collaborative projects. So here, this is the platform where you can submit for funding requests for the Swiss partners. So I have set up this recently. So also all the DM project that has been successful from the last call, they basically go to this website to request the funding for their Swiss candidates. I mean, I tell them Swiss because they will be recruited at the Swiss institution. Of course, they can be from any nationalities. So I strongly recommend that you also visit this website to look at the guide. So you will find this guide for Swiss participants, and there's also a subchapter for the MSCA because they are unit cost. So all these PhD candidates get the same financial support as if Europe has been paid them, would pay them. Now, let's have a look again what it means if you want to apply for the regular doctoral network. Again, this is the standard option, maximum 360 person months, including the Swiss partner. This is the recommendation. There are no additional rules. It's the easiest to implement. And secondment, of course, can be anywhere. So you can have PhD candidates from the beneficiary coming for training to Switzerland, or you can have the candidates from the Swiss institutions going to any partner in a European country that is beneficiary. joint doctorates. So we got last year many questions about joint doctorate and industrial doctorates, of course, because the funding is bigger. So here, keep in mind the joint degree has to be at least from 2 beneficiaries. So since Switzerland is not associated, the degree from the Swiss institution is not considered. So if you want to join such a joint degree, the PhD candidate has to basically be inscribed or enrolled in 3 programs, the Swiss one and the 2 beneficiaries. And maybe this doesn't make so much sense in the perspective of the researcher. And I put here the comment, it's the easiest to implement for the Swiss institution perspective. So if it's a Swiss institution, of course, the joint degree can be just this 1 beneficiary, but it would be at different circumstances for the official Marie Curie fellow that wants to get a degree together with a Swiss institution. There they need to be enrolled in 3 programs. So the joint doctorate is rather a complicated one with a Swiss institution. It's not impossible, but maybe not the easiest from the perspective of the candidates. Now about the industrial doctorates. Again, recall it's a 540 person months, including the Swiss partners we recommend, at least 1 entity from the non-academic sector, and the candidates need to be at least 50% in the non-academic sector. And it is new that no consecutive recruitment is needed anymore. And these fellows can be seconded to the other beneficiaries. So this means that doctoral candidates can be employed at the Swiss institutions, and they can be seconded to any beneficiary for unlimited time. So because in the last call, it was necessary to have consecutive recruitment, it was complicated to join industrial doctorate. Now it is much easier. So you can imagine a PhD candidate paid by the Swiss government can only be paid if this candidate is employed in Switzerland, but this person can be seconded to a beneficiary, let's say in Germany, for more than 18 months, and in this way comply with the rule. And this will also be paid by the Swiss government. So it's much easier now to implement the industrial doctorate. I would like to take now more time to look at the proposal, several aspects of it. So first of all, the 2 most important documents that prepares you for the proposal preparation is the guide for applicant, the 2022 one, and also the MSCA part of the work program 2022. You will find the link afterwards in the follow-up in the slides. And the submission of the proposal and all the documents can be found at the Funding and Tenders Opportunity portal. You also have here the link. You see here the opening date, the deadline, and all the important links are here. So here you need to basically create the proposal for the submission. This is also the website where you find an FAQ. So here you find a long list of frequently asked questions and the answers from the Commission. So this could also be worth checking what are the answers of the most common questions. And maybe there's also questions that you have and you find the answer already here. And if the answer is not clear, of course, you can contact us anytime to find out. Now about the proposal, there is a part A and B in general. So you also find there the application form on the Funding and Tenders of Opportunity portal. And basically part A is the application form with the administrative information. So all the contact details, there are several questions to fill. Then the part that is basically the heart of the proposal is part B1. This will be evaluated. It can be max 30 pages without title and so on. And these 30 pages has to include the part of excellence, impact, and implementations. So these are the 3 award criteria. And all of them have to be scored very highly in order to have a competitive proposal. So excellence counts most, 50%. Then we have impact with 30%, implementation is 20%. So these are very important award criteria where you can find the sub-chapters in this application form. And then in B2, you can enter additional information on the beneficiaries, and very important for the Swiss partners is the part B2 with the letter of commitment. So this letter is mandatory and should be included. Now, some important considerations in general. So what is important, of course, is the partners. Who is in this network? Why are they part of this network? So all of this has to make completely sense for every partner, why they are in it, who is the coordinator, what do you want to achieve with this network, with these partners. So we have also heard often advices like, you should not just include somebody because they are good friends, but really because you want to have their set of skills and knowledge within the network. You should already consider what types of deliverables and milestones you want to assess. And the recruitment strategy has to be agreed within the consortium. I want to also mention here Euresearch. So all the open positions, open calls of the doctoral network have to be published on Euresearch. It's important to consider the local training opportunities. Please keep in mind, a doctoral network is not just about a research project, but it should really have an attractive training plan for the candidates. And then also have a very clear communication plan, not just dissemination, exploitation, but also how the doctoral network reaches out. What is the communication plan to which type of target audience? At the same time, of course, the communication within the network is also crucial to clarify this. And it is also important that you know about the gender equality plan that is mandatory for universities and public entities. And there's also the supervisory board within the doctoral network. So they are coordinating network-wide training, research, and in particular supervision activities in line with the MSCA guideline for supervision. So please check this document. I have here the link. And it also says establishing a continuous communication and exchange of best practices among the participating organizations to maximize the benefit of the partnerships. So you should really consider who is in this supervisory board of your doctoral network. And now, how to include the Swiss project. We also made a 2-pager that you can find on our website. So in the proposal preparation phase, in the writing phase, basically describe why the Swiss partner is important for the impact of the doctoral network. You should clearly describe why they should be included. The project of the PhD candidates that are recruited by the Swiss partners should also be included, even if basically the European Commission doesn't care, because in their eyes, they don't fund these candidates. If they are not part of the evaluation, the State Secretariat cannot fund these candidates. So these projects should also be included and described as if they would be normal Marie Curie candidates. Of course, you should also specify how many person months and how many candidates are employed by the Swiss partners. So include them, specify that you know that they are basically supplementing the network and they are not official fellows, but basically be transparent in the proposal writing. As I said, you should distinguish that they are not official fellows, but supplement the network. And the budget of the Swiss partner cannot be included in part A, like for the other beneficiaries. And the only part where it can be included nicely is in the letter of commitment that is mandatory for the associated partners. And I just wanted to here show a screenshot from the implementation section of the proposal. You see here there are 2 tables. Table 3.1e is the recruitment table per beneficiary. Of course, Switzerland is not a beneficiary or not at this stage. So anyway, include them here and make like a small remark that they are these additional fellows funded by the Swiss government. But include them there as if they would be normal fellows. The same for the individual research project in table 3.1f. Please describe everything for this fellow as if they would be a normal fellow. Now, the letter of commitment, you find basically a template from the European Commission. We also have a template for the Swiss institution. So if you're interested, I mean, this is just a template. You can have your own, but you can, of course, get ours that is basically done, made for the Swiss partners, where you can also see it's explained how the Swiss State Secretariat will fund these additional candidates. So please write us an email if you wish to have such a letter of commitment. Here, I also would like to get back to the communication within the consortium, but also especially about the Swiss partners, because they are not part of the consortium in the sense of that they are not beneficiary, so they have no access to the proposal in the Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal. So this means that project-related communications should be forwarded by the coordinator to Swiss partners. So Swiss partners basically blind. So please don't forget to have a clear communication with the Swiss partners, or as a recommendation for the Swiss partner, please keep in mind how you can receive the information that is important for you, although you're not beneficiary. So one workaround is that the coordinators add the Swiss partner as a coordinator's contact. In that way, they get automatically all the messages. In case you're still looking for partners, there are several platforms where you can find partners. So there's this EEN, this European Enterprise Network. There's this Funding and Tenders Opportunity platform, where there's also Partner Search or Euresearch. Now, I would like to say that, of course, as NCPs, we always offer proposal review. However, since Switzerland cannot coordinate, we put a focus on a description of the Swiss partner. We believe that a thorough proposal review makes sense, especially for the coordinator who prepares this, for example, with the NCP of their country. So basically, the main proposal review should be done together with the coordinators, but we as Swiss NCPs, we are also happy to provide a limited proposal review basically on the description of the Swiss partner. And as I said, it's important that the coordinators or anyone is in contact also with the national contact point of their respective countries. So you find all this contact data on the Funding and Tenders Opportunity portal. And with that, we are ahead of time. We can have the opportunity to listen to the testimony of Professor Nico Bruns, who's actually already in the waiting room. However, maybe we can take some questions if there are any that we can clarify before the testimonials. I quickly check here. No, we can also do it. Yeah, okay. Just make a short break. It was a lot of information. Hello, Nico Bruns. Nice to see you. I hope you can hear us.
Nice to see you. Yes, yeah.
We are quite ahead of time, but I also think we have several questions. I was just quickly checking, Sibylla, if we should take some now, and then we can start with your testimonial.
Okay. I felt already that I was late seeing my name here already on the screen. Like,
no, we just came on this slide.
okay. Just on time.
Good. So Sibylla prepared some slides.
Just 2 questions.
So there are 2 questions mainly. So question 1, is this submission website new? Previously, the grant agreement had to be signed before we could register anything. You mean for the Swiss Yes, this website is new. Yes, this is it's just out now this spring, actually, for all collaborative projects. And once your proposal is successful, you can request for the funding for the Swiss DN. I mean, for the Swiss partner in the last call DN. And the second question is, at what stage do we recruit specific students to fill the PhD candidate's position, to fill the, and where do we post the open positions? So all open positions have to be posted at Euresearch, but you can also use additional websites or portals where you announce open positions. And you should also describe how you do this announcement in the proposal already. So the recruitment should be very transparent and clear. At what stage do we recruit? So yeah, you can see that the entire project can last 48 months, and the PhD projects can be up to 36 months. So you have time at the beginning for the setup to launch, and then you make basically your open call. So this is very, you can decide yourself in the network when you recruit. I hope this has been clear. Yes, I will quickly check. Okay, there are some people who raised their hands. So maybe Shana Stura, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thanks. I have a question that's maybe related to one in the chat, and that is if the funding for the associated partner comes from CIRI, when you have kind of these guidelines of what comprises the consortium in terms of the minimum number, et cetera. So do we count the Swiss? Do we count a student that would be studying in Switzerland in these numbers, or do we add them on top? Like, for example, there's the question there of if you need a minimum of 3 institutes. Well, actually, I think the answer to that is you need 3 plus, you need 3 in addition to Switzerland, is the answer to that one. But in general, in terms of the rest of the funding structure, like let's say you have several partners more than that, do you kind of count Switzerland in with the initial batch, or is it on top of, or do you is it more recommended to say make a consortium that would, could have all of the aspects that would be funded even without the Swiss partner, and then you add the Swiss partner to it?
Yes, so at the moment now, Switzerland is a non-associated third country, so we can only participate as associated partners. So we cannot, it's not possible to fulfill the eligibility criteria of the minimum one. Mm-hmm. And I think at the proposal stage now in the writing, you should think as a Swiss, as an associated partner. However, because if the status changes next year and Switzerland will be associated and will become a beneficiary and can receive European money, the Swiss government cannot pay anymore. For this reason, the PhD candidates employed by the Swiss now in the proposal says they should be included in the European budget. Although in the proposal writing, you don't write them as beneficiary. Mm-hmm. This is basically to be on the safe side. Mm-hmm. But last year, maybe we can hear it from the testimonial, it was basically said, just count them on top of, and then you could have even more candidates than 360 person months or 540 person months. But now at the moment, think of them as an associated partner, an officially associated partner, where you can have the benefit of having additional money from the Swiss government.
Okay, and then if we become associated, then we will be unable to get funding for the student.
Exactly. So imagine
because we will not have counted ourselves within the funding for the EU request, and we will no longer be able to request it from CIRI.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Exactly. So you could be in between, right? It could be a very unfortunate situation if we become associated and then Switzerland cannot pay anymore. And then you have too many PhD students and you're above the budget that Europe proposes. Good. If there are no other questions, maybe is there still one hand? Yeah, one hand is up. Georgia Salanti, do you want to ask your questions in the round?
Yes, thank you. Is it true that in the evaluation process is primarily the contribution and the concepts that is associated with the beneficiaries rather than the partners?
I think the contribution of the partners is also very important. It should be clear why you have all these partners. I mean, the consortium have to make sense. Of course, the beneficiary is also important because they are directly financed. But at the end, it has to make sense why you have all these partners in it. So you should still describe the Swiss partners, and especially because you basically include additional PhD candidates that do research. It should not be neglected to describe the Swiss contribution to the entire network.
Yes, no, I got that. You got very clear, but at the end of the day, the final decision will be taken based on the beneficiaries and not much on the partners. So what I'm trying to get at is that it's a little bit risky, let's say, for other countries to include us as partners, because we are getting in the budget, but we are contributing very little in terms of.
No, I don't see that in that way. I mean, you will see in the testimonials of Nico Bruns, he has several Swiss partners in it. And I think at the end, in the evaluation, you really evaluate the excellence of the network, the excellence of the project, the excellence of the training, and this can be offered by the partners. I mean, if, let's say, Swiss institutions offer great training to the candidates, it is part of the evaluation. And you basically need to have high scores in the evaluation. So I don't see at all that the Swiss partners is a burden or is a negative aspect at all. I think what counts at the end is the excellence of the network. And this should be, this is the most important.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe we stop now for the moment with the questions. And I'm very happy that I can introduce Nico Bruns, who is joining us today from actually UK, right? So we were before in Fribourg, or maybe you're Germany. So you're really a European citizen all over the place. But yeah, we were in contact before you were coordinating an ITN when you were at University of Fribourg, actually AMI at the Adolf Merkel Institution. And we stayed in contact and we looked at your proposal last year and it got a very high score and was successful. And I'm very happy that you joined today's information event and you can share your experience, how it was to prepare a proposal with Swiss partners. And yes, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks, Isabel. You were very welcome. And hello, everyone. Sorry, I didn't have time to tune in earlier, but I have been at one of these events many years ago, and it was very crucial in getting my first ITN granted. So, you know, you're in for really good information here. But I think my role today is to tell you a little bit about, the problems and chances, I would say, of this Swiss situation. And I should also say, of the UK situation. So I see here on my screen Phil Holiday from UKRI. So if that affiliation is correct. It's because obviously not only Switzerland messes up with Europe, or Europe messes up with Switzerland, but also the UK has messed up big times. This was one of the reasons why I'm now back in Germany. I've now moved, I think this will be my final move. I moved to the Technical University of Darmstadt, close to Frankfurt. So I coordinated an ITN that ran until 2020 on was called Plant-Inspired Materials and Surfaces, Plamatsu. And I've just been granted a new ITN as coordinator called Metal-Containing Radical Enzymes, which basically both reflect my research interests. They're quite broad, ranging from enzyme catalysis to polymers. And what you work here against is a constantly changing landscape, I would say, or the goalposts are always changing. And that makes it difficult. And we've seen this with some of the questions that already came. In our case, with the last incarnation of the ITNs, they're called now doctoral networks, we were quite lucky because in the end, the Swiss contributions, and we have 10 European PhD students and 3 from the UK, from Switzerland, and they were simply counted on top of it. Yeah, so basically the budget is 10 plus 3, which makes it this doctoral network similar in size than the previous ITNs. So that's a good news. So if it stays like that until next year, then of course you can count with that. But I also heard here that there might be changes, so you have to plan a bit ahead. And where I planned ahead for my own situation, I already knew that I would change to Germany. So I made sure that in our network we don't have more than 4 students in Germany when I would move there with my 2 students and so on. So that basically we keep the whole consortium eligible at all times. There are possibilities to then fine-tune things. Yeah. So for example, the UK got kicked out of this current round of funding at already the stage where we're preparing the grant agreements. But the project officers were really flexible in finding solutions. So one solution was no problem for me to change coordination or change institution into Germany, but also to tweak the hiring of the students, because with the UK having gone into a similar status than Switzerland, all of a sudden we didn't have 10 students in the network funded through Europe, but only 9. And that, of course, through this equilibrium of that only 40% of the overall funding can go into one country. It made difficulties there. The solution we found is that we employ one of the German PhD students, one of my students, for 2 years in Germany and 1 year in Austria. So they were quite, hands-on trying to find solutions how to solve this. But it's something you have to kind of put into this event, into the planning, and foresee that, and make sure that with the possible foreseeable changes, you still have a way of keeping the whole thing eligible. Yeah. I think that's the crucial point. What I experienced is that in terms of evaluation, there's no disadvantage whatsoever if you have Swiss partners or UK partners in there or others, as long as you make sure that you explain why they're in there. Yeah. So of course this means if the Swiss partners are going to hire PhD students, then you have to give them a project as with anyone else. The Swiss partners should participate in all training events and provide training. Their industry context there and so on. So really, think of them as full-blown, part of the consortium. Yeah, they're not, and make sure that the reviewers get why you're on board. Yeah, and why it's a plus to have you on board. Yeah, because you could say, yeah, but why do we need them? But if you say, yeah, we need them because then we have this work package reinforced, this one, there's essential expertise coming in there, then that works. So, and because it's not in, there's no such thing as a rating criteria when they evaluate you, saying are associated partners receiving money from external. So it's there might be an unconscious bias, but there's definitely nothing that can write and deduct you points in by having external partners like Swiss partners in there, or like the UK partners. So I think one should not fear that this will result in a lower score during evaluation, because it's simply not a criteria they evaluate against. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to make reasonable choices and explain why certain people are on board. But beyond that, my experience is that the panel decides on very set rules of criteria, and everyone beyond that is not up to them to judge. And what counts is what is at the point or at the day of submission, because you can't plan ahead. So what you can plan ahead is in the risk table, for example. You can say, and we did that, what happens if UK is going to be kicked out? Or in your case, you could say, what happens if Switzerland is going to taken into the Horizon Europe? Yeah, and then that's a risk. And then you say risk mitigation. Oh yeah, we thought about it because we highly welcome them to join, and then the whole financial equilibrium is still in place. And then you show to the evaluators that you actually thought about how to address this problem or this potential problem. Yeah, that was me just trying to recollect of what we are facing. So I think what counts is at the day of submission, this is what counts. And you have to plan a bit ahead of what could come, but you never can anticipate what's happening. There might also be PIs that move to the States and then they become not eligible anymore. So that's again something that is simply put into the risk table and addressed. Either you keep the person on board when they move on during the project, or with a REST affiliation to one of the original institutions, or you shuffle the PhD student to another institution, or whatever best suits your consortia and your project. And instead of me talking more, I think I'll just open this now for questions.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And I think what you said is really crucial to keep in mind that, as you said, that for the evaluation, to have Swiss or UK partners is really not a burden in that sense, but to be really to show that you have thought about the risks, that you explain the risks, and this is what the evaluators will consider. So at the end, it's really to what extent the consortium makes sense and who is in it for the scope of the network of the training and research that you offer in this network. Yes, we are good in time. We have plenty of time for questions. Maybe if people prefer, we can also stop the recording, so you feel free to ask your questions. So we will stop now the record. I don't know if anyone is shy about this. Can you? Yes, Sibylle is just stopping.